Hi, this is PG of PG's Lumacy. In this tutorial, we will be making the star for the Rainbow Loom Nativity Series. To make the star, you could use the gold metallic bands from Rainbow Loom. It comes in a pack with silver metallic bands as well. I'm not sure if it is still available from their website or their other retailers. I will be using for this project a brand of gold rubber bands that I got from eBay. And if you cannot find any of these gold metallic bands, you can use the neon orange bands or the yellow bands from Rainbow Loom. We will use the loom in its standard offset configuration, which means that the pins will be staggered. We start off by placing a chain of single vertical bands on the left side of the loom, and we will start placing from the top going towards the bottom. One of the disadvantages of using non-original Rainbow Loom bands is that they are not as strong, especially these metallic gold bands. I noticed that they break easily, so it might be a good idea to give them a good stretch just to make sure that there are no weak spots in the bands that you are using. There, we got to the bottom of the loom and we had one band break while we are testing it. If our piece was already looped and put together and one of the bands break, that would be very frustrating. So it would be a good idea to check for the strength of the bands before placing them on the loom. We will now place the bands for the points of the star, and we will start with this pin, which is second from the top on the left, and we will go from this pin to this pin on the center. I have already pre-stretched the bands to save some time. We go from the left pin to the center pin in a diagonal, and then from the center pin to the right, also in a diagonal. Now there will be a tendency to place the band on this pins like this, sort of going this way. But you will have to place the next band on this pin going to the center in a diagonal. And place this band after that. Okay, so don't place this band ahead of this band. It will not come out right if you do that. Now we will cap these bands and we will place our cap band here. We will wrap our band 4 times on this pin. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we will place a double loop band on these pins to hold the point of the star together. So push down on the pins and then place a double loop band. To make a double loop band, you twist a band and then you fold it to itself and you will form a double loop band. And you place that on the corresponding pins. So this is now the pattern for each point in the star. Let me show you how that's done one more time in normal speed, and then we will speed up the video for the rest of the points. Okay? Diagonal band from the left to the center, and then diagonal band from the center to the right. Diagonal band from the left to the center, and then another diagonal band from the center to the right. We cap that with a cap band wrapped 4 times on the pin. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we place a double loop bands on these pins to hold the point together. We twist, fold to itself, and we form a double loop band, and we place that on this pair of pins. That is our second point in the star. Now we will do the 3 other points in faster speed. This is how the layout will look like after you have placed all the bands. Please pause the video and check to see if you have the same layout. Now let us loop the bands. Our looping will go from right to left. And we start by grabbing the band that is on top, which is in my case this band. We go into the cap band and grab that band and get it out of the pin, and then loop it to this pin in the center. And then we grab the next band and then loop it to the pin on the center, and they will be in a diagonal. Now we grab this band from the center and loop it to this pin on the left, and grab this band and loop it to this pin on the left, and you will get this formation of bands when you loop them that way. Let me show it one more time in normal speed. Okay, you see that we just broke one of our cap bands, and so we just need to replace it. Let's hope that none of our bands break when they have already been looped, because that way it would be a little bit difficult to replace them and we might need to redo everything. But we could just replace this broken cap band 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, let's resume our looping. We grab this band and then loop it to this pin on the center, and grab this band and loop it to this pin on the center. Now let us do the rest of the points. So this is how it will look like after you have looped the bands for the points in the star. You may have noticed that a lot of the pins were slipping off, especially when we were at these sections. The reason for that is that the Rainbow Loom was designed for the looping to happen from this channel going to this pin. And we were actually going against the flow of what the Rainbow Loom was designed for. Another reason for that is that this particular brand of bands are not only weaker, but they are more springy than the usual bands that we get from Rainbow Loom. So you'll have to be aware of that and make adjustments accordingly. Now let us loop this chain of vertical bands. We start with this band over here. We don't loop this band, we just hold on to it, and then we start with the second band from the bottom. We go into those loops, and then we get this band out of the pin and loop it to the forward pin. And then we loop the next band in the chain. So that is how it will finally look like when we have looped all the bands, the points and the vertical bands. Now let us get the bands off the loom. So you insert your hook into these end loops on the top, and very carefully pull the piece off the loom. Be very careful with these end points because they're looped pretty tightly. Very carefully, just stretch out the bands. Remember, these are not as strong as the solid colored bands, so be very careful in stretching them out. Now, to close the loop, okay, you could cut off this band that we used from the bottom of the layout, or you could find a way to use it as a hanger, but for my particular use I don't need it, so I will just cut it out. Okay, and then we are looking for these loops. Okay, you're looking for these loops, and we are going to connect those with the loops that were on the top of our layout. So what we do, very carefully, okay, we get one of the loops off the hook, and then we insert the hook into the loops that we would like to get, and then get the loop that we got off back on the hook. What happens when we do that is that we close the chain that has been formed in the middle of our star. And from there, just get the loop, this loop into the inner loops, and secure these two loops with a C-clip. Okay, that closes this band, and our star is formed. Very carefully stretch out the outer edges and then bunch up the inner bands, and you will form your star. Okay. You're bunching up the middle parts and then stretching out the outer parts. Being very careful, like I said, because these bands are not as strong as the usual bands. And then fine tune the shape until you get the shape of the star. Now, to attach the star to the stable, I will be using a toothpick. You just need to be careful if children are going to be playing with the pieces. You might want to find other safer methods of attaching the star to the stable, like using bands, for example. But because my nativity series will be a display piece and children will not be playing with it, I will be using a toothpick. I will cut the length of the toothpick to about the width of the roof. And I will be needing two pieces of this. I'll be using both ends, the pointed ends of the toothpick. Okay. And you see these cap bands that we used for the ends or the points of the star. I will be inserting my toothpick into those cap bands. Again, be careful in inserting the toothpick. Sometimes when the toothpick is rubbing against the band, the friction seems to be enough to cut that band, so be careful. Okay, so I inserted the toothpicks into the cap bands. You could hide the toothpick. Now this is how it will look like. Then we will insert the toothpicks into the bands in the stable. Okay. We go make sure it doesn't show on the top or on the bottom. And that is how we attach the star to the stable. And there you have it, the star for the Rainbow Loom Nativity Series.